Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Make sure you're checking out the merchandise, the coffee and the mugs and the tumblers. Today is the last day to take part in the fundraiser for the 22-0 drive to end veteran suicide. Portion of the proceeds of the sales will be going to the 22-0 organization. And the guys over there, Juan from Right American Media, he owner and producer for Right American Media, one of the platforms where Veteran Nation, where a show I co-host with Mike Skipper Arthur, that airs on Right American Media and on the NRN network. And Juan's going to match up to $100, and Kim and his wife, who make the merchandise, are going to match up to $100 as well. So make sure that you are ordering. I will give people through the end of the day on Sunday to place that order. And even if the payment doesn't arrive before then, we will calculate that into the earnings and the donations. So please make sure you order. You can email me at tcpearson@protonmail.com, or you can message me on Facebook at tcpearson, or you can message me on the Twitter platform that I have at Robe Regiment, and let me know what you're interested in, and I can help you figure out what shipping will be, because goodness gracious, if you're not Amazon, shipping is not cheap, but I've got a way around some of it. Today is an anniversary, and it is an actual anniversary. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of me being formally placed on administrative leave by Olmsted County Sheriff's Office as it relates to my social media content and my commentary about society and culture and politicians and all things Marxist here in the state of Marxisota. The decision to place me on paid administrative leave came after a 60-plus day internal investigation witch hunt conducted by one Michelle Soldo out of the Twin Cities. She's a private attorney up there, and ultimately was implemented as a weapon against me at the behest of J.D. Carlson, the chief of police for the city of Albert Lea, Minnesota, and Kelly Dawn Martinez of the city attorney's office of Albert Lea. And they had contacted both my employer and then the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the FBI to complain about me and to accuse me of all sorts of nefarious actions. And to quote KDM, we euphemistically refer to her as KDM in this neck of the woods, as she told me when she summoned me to testify against Lisa Hansen in Albert Lea, she told me, "Your rhetoric is dangerous." Yeah, dangerous rhetoric. So yeah, today is that day. It's that anniversary. And I didn't know what to expect coming into the day. I was a little reticent. I have realized quite a bit over the last year how much the career that I had with the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office negatively impacted me on a personality wavelength, if you will. How much it changed me. I was hardened. The job made me a hard, cantankerous old man. I was hard to talk to. I was hard to deal with. and I own that. I have to I have to step up and say, look, I don't get to treat people poorly just because I'm in an ugly job and ugly career. But it did change me, and I'm sure that the assault that I experienced 4 years ago, uh, while on the job, had something to do with that. It doesn't shock me in the least. Um, to find out when I talk to now former members of the law enforcement community, be they street cops or um, people within the corrections field, they'll tell you the same story. It changes you. It changes you, and there are ways some of those changes are positive, but there are also ways where some of those changes are and profoundly negative. I lack trust in people. I don't trust easily at all now. I rarely, rarely consider myself in a position where I'm making a fast friend um, easily, and I approach everything with suspicion, and that's been exacerbated. It's been compounded ultimately by the way I was treated by people who should have been watching out for me. And I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, I don't trust anybody in leadership positions anymore at all. People in management, at work, anything like that. It's not an issue of me not liking them on a personal level. I just don't trust people anymore. And so, because of the way I was treated the last 2 years by my former employer, I have no trust. I'm always expecting somebody to be angling to find a way to be upset with me for something, to find a reason to take punitive action against me. I just expect it all the time now, and I'm sure that'll change over time, but it's not going away anytime soon. And it feels like paranoia, really. It's and I was talking to another person, and they said, "Yeah, that's normal, especially for people who have gotten out of that environment." And this individual counsels people in law enforcement. Their entire uh, practice is counseling former and current law enforcement. And they said senior administration and leadership within law enforcement, sheriff's office, police departments, state patrol, things like that. They like that power. They like that feeling, and they don't care how much it affects you or in a negative way. They literally enjoy what it does to people because it keeps you malleable. And the very thing that makes you a good cop, a good deputy, good detention deputy, whatever, is kind of this rugged, individualistic, alpha dominant personality, is also the very thing they try to drum out of you because they don't want that. They want it, but they can't stand it. And in the constant conflict of the kind of work that you do, then coupled with an assault on a person's individuality and their liberty, like what I went through, is, and by this individual's estimation, is incredibly damaging on a emotional and psychological level. And boy, are they right. I just can't emphasize enough what the career does to individuals and what it also does when you don't have the ability to trust people who should be watching out for you and doing the right thing and how they handle things. Now, it sounds like a really long opening and a really long explanation as to why. But here, what I want to show you is a series of emails that I exchanged with a member of the Olmsted County Olmsted County Human Resources Department, because I was at wit's end. I I was going to work every day out, stressed out. It was sickening, and it was making my career, my job, even harder because I wasn't responding to the detainees the right way. I wasn't responding to fellow deputies the right way. I wasn't responding to my sergeants the right way. Um, I got to the point where I was getting so sick that there were days I wanted to call in. I just wanted to call in. But I knew if I did that, they'd use that against me. So I took the risk and I went in to work knowing that I could make an error in judgment, which was going to get used against me. And so I finally was digging into policy and procedure about grievances by staff and how they should be handled and grieving the disciplinary process. And I had no place to go but to the HR department, because as policy and procedure states that when you are being disciplined, when somebody's taking a disciplined stance with an employee of the Olmsted County local government agency, local public entity, you appeal that to the superior of the person, the direct superior of the person who's disciplining you. Well, I didn't have any place to go. The only person I could appeal the discipline process to was the sheriff, who ordered the discipline process against me. He ordered it against me. Now, he may not have, it might have been Brian Howard that was handling all of it, but good old Tyrant Torgy was the one that was directing it. And he's the one who stood in the way of any kind of civil settlement or civil working things out for months. For months, he was angry because he didn't like the way it was making him look. And so I didn't have any place to go once the process started on February 19th of 2021. No place to turn. The union was helping, but they were only able to do so much because it was an ongoing process. And the union attorney was doing a great job, a phenomenal job. I can't thank the union enough. I can't thank the attorney enough. They fought, but like the deck was stacked. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share these emails with you so that you can see that what I was doing. I was trying. Very first email that I wrote. Eric, I'm sure you have no idea who I am, but I need to ask you something, and I need to know that in asking it will remain confidential, as in between us, Todd. Now, I didn't know where else to go. Human Resources is my only option here, ladies and gentlemen. This was Eric's response to me almost immediately. So then my first email was at 8 something. Eric responds to me at 9:29 in the morning on April 2nd. Todd, I know who you are, and I can certainly keep our conversation confidential. I don't remember why Eric, or I don't know why Eric would know who I am or whatnot. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he just remembered having like made an ID or something for me. Okay. So here's what I start with. I said, I appreciate that, sir. I'm currently in the midst of a morass of stressful situations, not the least of which is some disciplinary action. I'm not looking to rehash the issue that caused the discipline itself, but I need some clarification on the proper procedure for discipline. If I am reading county policy on discipline proceedings correctly, even a verbal coaching requires written documentation. So here we start with coaching. Coaching is a structured approach designed to bring about change in an employee's work behavior. This is key, ladies and gentlemen, to the entire case. Work behavior. Okay? Anyway, remember, none of my stuff was work-based. The process consists of a private meeting with the employee to explain the performance problem, determine its cause, and develop a plan for a solution. The following areas should be addressed with the employee. Provide specific examples of standards or expectations not being met. Review the employee's job performance history. Ask the employee for ideas on how the performance problem can be corrected. Reach agreement about what changes must be made. If agreement is not possible, the supervisor must take the lead in identifying desired changes. Document the remedial plan. Give a copy to the employer or employee and retain a copy in your records. Schedule and conduct a follow-up meeting with the employee. So then it goes on to prepare the follow-up meeting, review the plan for improvement, compare the desired changes outlined in the plan with the employee's present performance, then meet privately with the employee. Start and end the session on a positive note. Address the following areas. So what I say to him here is, if I am interpreting this portion of county policy correctly, I'm concerned that I do not know how to proceed. I was given a disciplinary step notice, written reprimand on 2/19/2021, and then informed on 2/24/2021 that I'm under internal investigation for the same reasons I was being formally reprimanded. My concern is that this was avoidable going back to May 30th, 2020 of 2020. Anyway, and so I go into the detail and explain what happened between myself and Chief Deputy Howard. And I explain that I was never approached after being approached on May 30th of 2020. And I explained that I was never told that was even considered a coaching. It was just a conversation, advising caution, remember? And so what I'm struggling with is, how do I proceed? Because according to Olmsted County policy, the disciplinary process was mangled. It was completely mangled by Chief Deputy Brian Howard. There was no written notice of me being coached. None. I was never given any written notice of me being coached. I wasn't told how anything that I was doing was in any way, shape, or form affecting my work. The only thing that affected my work was the discipline process. That's it. That's what affected my work. So here's what I say to him. My concern is that if the 5/30/2020 conversation was officially part of the discipline process, I was never made aware of that. I did not receive any written notification of this. And if the written documentation was placed in my personnel file, I never received a copy of that written documentation or notification of that placement. Certainly, if Chief Howard feels that my activities are egregious enough to warrant that I receive a formal written reprimand and disciplinary step notice, that is for him to ascertain. However, since he decided to cite the conversation that took place in Master Control on the evening of 5/30/2020 as part of the written reprimand, then not only was this entire event preventable through proper communication, but my rights as an employee were violated, and egregiously so. Again, I'm not disputing the facts or perceptions of the case of the cause for the formal discipline on 2/19/2021 or the internal investigation. That is a conversation for me to have with my union representation and attorney. I'm disputing the procedural methodology that was used against me. I am concerned that according to the policy that governs actions of this type, protections that exist for employees of the county were stripped from me in an incredibly heinous manner. Due to a deliberate lack of willingness to converse with me in writing and then in person over this matter, I now find myself in a position where I find my work performance suffering. Suffering not due to my actual outside activities as a private citizen, but due to a large degree of stress, anxiety, and fear that Chief Howard and others are now monitoring every action I take, not only in my work, but in my away from work activities as a private citizen. The work environment feels incredibly hostile to me every day, and in the line of work that I do, this is a terrible predicament to be in. Merely walking into the break room or administration area of the ADC causes me to feel overwhelming anxiety. Again, I'm convinced that had this been addressed in accordance with policy and procedure, we would not be in this situation. This is not a failure on my part, but on the part of Chief Howard. Under the circumstances, I am, and I do not use this word lightly, terrified of the ramifications of addressing this to Chief Howard and the sheriff. I currently believe that any attempt on my part to point out the violation of policy and procedure would result in further actions against me. This is a terrible situation to work in, and it causes the conditions of my work to ripple out into my personal life. If you look at my personnel file, you will see very few issues of job performance and disciplinary actions. My annual reviews tend to be above average and bordering on excellence. Sometimes I marvel at that because I don't think I perform that well and can always improve in a variety of areas. I literally have more life-saving awards than I do discipline issues. Fact. I am firmly convinced that had this been handled properly back on 5/30/2020, this entire situation would have been preventable. Eric, I know you are here to represent the county and watch out for her interest. But as an employee, I feel that there must be a way to address this. I read the grievance procedures, and I just do not think it would be tenable on my end to proceed that way, as the only person who I can go to is a sheriff, and that feels terribly risky at this time. I spoke to the DSA back in May and June of 2020 about this issue, and they advised that as long as it was not being treated as discipline, that I should not feel the need to ask for their assistance in the matter. Now that we are nearly 11 months from that, I am in a world of hurt, and outside of the investigation, there is not much that the DSA can do. I realize I just dumped a ton of information and complaints on you all at once, but a trusted confidant told me to contact you because they think you are fair and to be trusted. Please know I'm only addressing what I perceive to be wrong done against me in this process and the extremely high level of hostility that I feel I am working under. Again, I will address the other issues through other channels, but I do firmly believe that this is a very important human resource issue, and I am at a loss to know how to proceed. This is new ground for me, and I feel almost hopeless in the moment. If policy and procedure exist for staff, and we can be disciplined for failing to abide by it, then supervisors, no matter their seniority and position, must abide by it as well. I am just too concerned for repercussions against me to do this alone. If you'd like to talk to me over the phone, you can call me on my personal cell. If you'd like to respond to me when I'm not at work when you return on Monday, you can call or email at my personal email. Thank you for your time and consideration. So, we're almost done. Eric says, sorry for the long email at 12. I am on shift for the remainder of the day until 1800 hours. Thank you for taking the time to communicate with me. So that was at 12:57 p.m. All right. This is Eric's response. Todd, don't worry about it at all. This is definitely something that we should look into and will need to address, as long as you allow me to. I think I would be best to include Marcia Vettel from personnel in any response or action going forward with your situation. She is the go-to person for matters of this nature that you describe in your email and the situation that you find yourself in. I will make sure as best we can to not include any others unnecessarily so as to hopefully resolve this situation correctly and without further stress or anxiety for you to yourself. Please let me know if I may include Marcia so that you can help us investigate through this. Thank you, Eric Sin. That's April 2nd, 2021, 1:16 p.m. April 2nd, 2021, 1:16 p.m. All right. Here's the last email in the chain, and it's me. Please do include her. Eric, your cautious handling of this means so much to me. I have been just sick. Friday, April 2nd, 1:19 p.m. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the last email in the chain. I never heard back from Eric. I never heard back from Marcia. 28 days later, I would be placed on administrative leave with no communication from HR after that. None. Not a word. So not only was I placed on administrative leave for over 60 days, not only, and we'll talk about in detail what the investigating attorney that the county hired, Michelle Soldo did in violating my lawful rights in a couple of situations, or at least one in particular. Uh, the county abandoned me after that. I don't know if Eric was told to drop it. I don't know if Eric just ultimately dropped the ball and never went forward with it. I don't know the ins or outs. I'm going to be working on getting to that if I can. But no one ever followed up with me, ever, from HR, until the head of HR showed up at the hearing that I had along with Marcia. Instead of doing their job and saying, "Oh, wait a minute, all of this is done. Brian Howard screwed up, Sheriff Torgerson screwed up, and we screwed up. This is a moot point. It's done. It stops here. Period." They went silent. And that's how I ended up on administrative leave. I didn't do it. The things that they tried to accuse me of, the stuff that they used to try and justify placing me on administrative leave, the stuff they tried to use to justify me being terminated, the reasons that they used to try and assault me even more by the insulting level of money that they wanted to offer to pay me to go away, the way it started, all of it. It's on them. It was on them. I didn't break any laws. I called public servants accountable. I called out Kelly Don Martinez. I called out Chief J.D. Carlson. I called out investigators from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. I didn't do anything illegal. I just did something untoward in their eyes, and they hated it. And if you haven't watched the whole series, go back and watch it. I don't hide anything. And I am working on the information. I want to get it, but I'm poor. And so I still have to pay for this stuff, is my understanding. So I'm trying to find a way to raise enough money to be able to pay to get the documentation of not only the disciplinary process, but all of the complaints and whatnot. And it's not easy. But this last year has been hell. And for what? Why? Because I rock the boat. Because I rock the boat. And Kevin Torgerson doesn't like it when people don't do every little thing that he says. There's just story after story after story after story of people who have stood up to him and have been, his attempts to humiliate them, his attempts to remove them. And he's constantly putting staff out on administrative leave and losing pretty much every time. And some of us just choose to take a settlement and go away because it's destroying us. I'm not angry at the situation anymore. I'm kind of thankful, one, because I've started to repair and heal and get back to who I was as a human being. But all this talk about everything that we want to do to make sure that we're taking care of people who are in that law enforcement world, about their mental health and their emotional health and whatnot, it's a bunch of garbage. And wanting people who are loyal to the Constitution, and wanting people who are going to stand up for what's right and watch out for the innocent and protect those who need protecting, and on and on and on. They don't want those kind of people. Guys like Kevin Torgerson and Brian Howard don't want those kind of people. J.D. Carlson and Kelly Don Martinez, I mean, she's a hardcore leftist, ladies and gentlemen. Always talking about oppression and whatnot. What leftists do, they don't care about those things. They love oppression when they get to use it. That's what they love. And I've always hated people like that. I use the word hated people. I don't mean it in the, the biblical sense, but I've always hated people like that. I've always stood up to the bullies in the rooms. Always stood up to the bully in the room. And the bullies don't like it when you do that. And sometimes the only way to make a bully back down is to give him a punch in the nose. And that's what I've been trying to do with this channel for the last 2 years. To punch the bully in the nose. And people can say, well, TC, you brought this on yourself. That's what happens. Well, I'm not doing it just for me. So, yeah, I've lost a lot. And it's been hell. It's been hell. I worked hard for what I had. And there's always somebody out there. What can I do to help? 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 And so at the behest of a friend, I've decided to start a Subscribe Star. It's right there. And the friend told me, like, I don't want to say that he told me I deserve it, but he said, there are people out there with Subscribe Stars and Patreon accounts and whatnot that they've got, they're getting paid. And some of them are for making content like video game streaming. So he said, no, you should do it. And so I did it. And part of me was like, wow, I don't know if I want to do this. I feel really bad. But I'm like, no. Because people said, what can we do to help? And this is what you can do. The people who should be without their jobs right now are guys like Kevin Torgerson and Brian Howard. J.D. Carlson and Kelly Dunn Martinez over in Albert Lee should not have jobs. And I have a job, but I don't even make half. I make less than half of what I was making when I left the sheriff's office. And once again, why? For what? What did I do? I stood up for somebody who was getting pushed around by a system that was being used against her. I stood up for myself. I was standing up for other people. While I watched the Constitution that I swore an oath to defend, the republic that I swore an oath to defend was being urinated on. And they're going to continue to do this, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to continue to do this until the rest of you wake the hell up and start fighting back. So if you have ever asked yourself, hey, TC, what can we do to help? There's your answer. It's right there. There's going to be some exclusive content on there. I'm going to be uploading a lot of the audio from some of my shows directly to Subscribe Star. Maybe some exclusive video. I'm going to, once the channels or the account is fully approved, I'm going to upload an exclusive interview with a gentleman who's going over to the Ukraine to fight with the Ukrainian military. In my attempt to talk him out of it, in my attempt to convince him that it's not our fight, I'm going to be putting that up there exclusively. I might put a teaser out on YouTube and Rumble for you guys, but that's going to be an exclusive to Subscribe Star, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast Subscribe Star for the totality of it. And it's a phenomenal conversation. But that's what you can do to help. So Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast on Subscribe Star. I've got several different tiers of support. I just want to get some extra money coming in every month, so I can kind of keep doing this and hopefully get out of the stress that's been eating me alive. Again, because I chose to fight back against bullies. And then I ran into one of the biggest ones I've ever met in my life, Brian Howard and his boss, Tyrant Torgy. Once again, please, through the end of the day on Sunday, if you guys are interested in supporting the 22-0 guys in their drive to end veteran suicide, 22 a day die. And another group of bullies at the federal level, the VA and the federal government, aren't doing a damn thing for them. So, let's see what we can do. Thank you for being loyal fans and friends. And once again, if you've ever asked yourself, what can we do? There it is. I appreciate every single one of you and everything that you guys have done to support me in word. And now I'm just asking for a little bit more. I never thought I'd be here, but that's where I am. So until next time, my friends and my patriots and my allies, Sic Semper, Tyrannus.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at